The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Well, I thought as the theme tune was the subject of some debate yesterday, we'll have the versions in future. This is the Friday version then of The Winning Plan by Graham Prescott. Tell me what you think. And we're open line through till 1 o'clock today. Call 66 13 68, text or WhatsApp on 166 177, email studio, email at manxradio.com. The National Insurance Fund could be empty within 20 years. Much has been said about this many times, and that's the warning from Treasury officials who previously told the Public Accounts Committee that the fund is now expected to be exhausted by 2047. That's 20 years, meaning if you're 18 years of age, by the time you're 40, there may be nothing in there. I just wonder what your thoughts are with this and where exactly we're going to go with it. A note in from Gary, this is following yesterday with Teresa Cope. Teresa Cope, in each of her last appearances on Mannin Line, has followed the same pattern of saying that she understands that matters are complex and plans are being produced and so on. The discussion about ENT waiting lists was a case in point, disputing lengthy waiting lists, saying that they're being reviewed again, but how many people actually have been seen in the last year by the ENT budget? Manxcare is always saying there isn't enough money, but there's not enough staff. Recently, that A&E is too small. Before yesterday, Teresa Cope said that the hospital needs to be extended. And also there's the need for a new multi-million-pound IT system. At the Public Accounts Committee, the Treasury Minister recently spoke about curbing Manxcare's overspending, while in the same week Mr Morehouse was told by the DHSC minister that details of spending by ambulance services couldn't be given. A general budget had been allocated, but the detail of costs was not being kept for the ambulance service. Serious issues arise on a weekly basis. This is Gary's words, like missed targets for conducting theatre operation sessions, and they're all too quickly forgotten again by politicians. As a consequence, Gary says Manxcare's overspending will never be controlled. I wonder what your thoughts are regarding this. And there was a lot of chat yesterday also about the fact that the Ramsey Cottage Hospital is where it is. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure Manxcare is purely a tenant, that the nuts and bolts, that the land and the buildings are owned by DHSC. Much at Noble's Hospital, I'm sure Manxcare is just the tenant. So presumably, who's going to be doing Ramsey Cottage Hospital up? Now, I think, and again I'm willing to be contradicted on this, is DOI responsible for doing up DHSC properties? We'll try and find out, but it's complicated, and the whole situation with the pest infestation, vermin infestation at Ramsey Cottage Hospital, and I'm sure nobody would want to be operated on or have clinical procedures when there's vermin around, or, possibly bird muck and things like that. So we'll see, but it's going to take a while for Ramsey Cottage Hospital to get back to where it's going to be. And I asked the question yesterday, this is the perennial question, is Ramsey Cottage Hospital safe for the future? Is it going to be kept? Or is it going to, at some point, is somebody in government going to say, well, we'll just amalgamate everything in Nobles, build a bigger Nobles and close down Ramsey Cottage Hospital, and you get a lot of houses on the site, wouldn't you? An ambulance station there as well. Thank you also to Nigel, who emailed in the question about Ramsey Cottage Hospital, whether or not Manxcare owns it. I'm sure DHSC own the buildings, but who's responsible for maintenance? We'll see. Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. I only hope it's not the DOI looking after the maintenance.
Well, you just wonder, don't you? I don't think DHSC has got a team of workers, so who knows who's going to be responsible for it?
There used to be a team of workers in the old ovals, etc., but they were employed by what was then DHSC. But now it's Manx Care.
Yeah.
As they rightly ask, and it's a good question, who looks after the physical upkeep of the buildings? You know, and that's a serious question.
Well, I think we deserve to know, as you know, the taxpayers paying for all this. It will be nice to know where if there is blame, where blame lies.
Exactly, and with the election coming up, it's a good question to ask expected MHKs, people that have a knowledge of this thing, who and what and when, and especially the man up in the north of the island. He's had a lot to say about the bishop, and now he's wanting the tax reforms. He's a good man to ask a question, who looks after them? Because I can say, well, I had to attend Ramsey Cottage Hospital last year for an operation, and you know, it was looking in a sorry state, but as Teresa Cope said, it is an old building, but it's a useful building for the people that's up in the Ramsey North area, because we become quite insular, and the journey from Douglas, or even from the south of the island, to people living on the island, it's a long way.
Yeah.
In the UK, it's only a long skid. But over here, we become insular and get used to having things virtually on our doorstep. So it would be a very good question to be asked in Tynwald, who actually maintains, who is employed to maintain it, and have their Manx Care got any input in it. They'll obviously have to have something for the medical side of it, but I mean, the structural side of it's got to be because the people of the island paid for it.
Well, that's it. What we want to know is who's mending the roof, Howard?
Exactly. Yep, exactly. And it's the people of the island who paid for it, firstly through their pension scheme, which was paid back apparently, and then continually afterwards. So it's the people of the island that's paying for the maintenance of it, but who is actually carrying it out apart from contractors who will be contracted to either Manx Care or the DOI. But on a lighter note, what I come in for, a number of years ago, this will stir the memories of some people that's on the island, the Isle of Man Steam Railway. We often hear the whistles as the trains are passing by, etc. But there used to be one locomotive, and it had been retrofitted with a steam whistle, and it sounded and had the trumpeting notes of an American locomotive. And it was on for maybe 2 years, and you can hear this quite clearly in amongst the other locomotives of the normal steam whistle. But then apparently, I'll stand corrected on this, they were told to take it off, whether it was somebody within government, someone within the railway, or somebody wanted it back because they owned it. But whatever happened to it?
I wonder. And it must be somewhere, surely.
Yeah, because it was, well, you got a distinctive different whistle on the American steam railways, and that's what this was fitted to, one of the locomotives. And it was used to say every day during its normal course of events, and plodding up and down Port Eden and back. But it disappeared, and what I was told was that it had been told to take it off the locomotive for whatever reason. I know it seems petty with so much serious things going on, but life has a lot of little challenges all through it.
I wonder. Well, I'm sure somebody in the railway fraternity knows where it went. So when do you think was the last time it was used, Howard?
Oh, I'm talking about at least 5 or 6 years. Pre-COVID anyway, I should imagine. So we're talking 5 or 6 years or more.
Right, okay. Well,
but it was, where I'm living, we hear the trains on a regular basis, and used to hear this thing going out and coming back, and as opposed to the other normal steam locomotive whistles, this thing here was Americanized.
Right. Okay. All right.
So it must have been adapted.
Yeah. Let's hope somebody knows where it is. It'll be somewhere knocking around. I'm sure there are enough railway people who know where it is.
Oh, aye. Well, it's just on a lighter note.
Okay. We always need a lighter note. Thanks, Howard. Have a good weekend.
Take care. Bye now.
It's 12:15 on Manx Radio, and Mannin Line is with you through until 1 o'clock this afternoon. DOI is responsible for maintaining Ramsey Cottage Hospital, says Dave, and also James says the same thing. Now, that's they're not officially sanctioned, but we're taking that as rather the DOI is responsible. And also the rodent problem has been around for a few years, says Dave. Well, obviously, that's no joke. I mean, that whole thing about rodents is no joke at all. I'm trying to think. Weil's disease, leptospirosis is the infection caused by this, particularly if humans come into contact with rodents, and nobody wants that. For heaven's sake, that's got to be sorted out, and it will take a real professional job to get it done. So we'll wait to hear more about that. What happens to the tons of toxic ash that are created by the incinerator? How is it disposed of? Says 033 David. Crikey. It takes me back to when the energy from waste plant was built years and years ago. We've checked on the Isle of Man. The ash from the energy from waste plant is handled in two different ways. David, just depends on the type of ash produced. The heavier material, bottom ash, is cooled and passed under magnets to remove any metals for recycling, according to the plant operator. Suez, their official information says the remaining ash is then tested for contaminants and sent to landfill currently for disposal. So the ash goes to landfill. The finer, more hazardous material, often called fly ash or air pollution control residue, is captured from the exhaust gases by filters. This is classed as hazardous waste, and that's sealed in controlled containers before being transported off the Isle of Man to specialist licensed facilities for safe disposal. It's worth noting that the recent Isle of Man government waste strategy discussions indicate there are plans being explored to reuse bottom ash in construction in the future rather than sending it to landfill, but at present landfill remains the only route. That's the situation, David, with the toxic ash, or the ash that comes out of the energy from waste plant. I was recently in the reception at Ramsey Cottage Hospital, says Pat on 223. It's been repainted, but it looks like it's been painted using a sweeping brush. Does the government never check the quality of work that our taxes pay for? It should. Seems everything that gets done is shoddy, says Pat at Ramsey Cottage Hospital. If you can tell me who's been painting, then that'd be nice. The article in the Courier last week. Texter 535 says that from April 23rd, ETA's electronic travel authorisation is going to be mandatory for most visitors to the Isle of Man from non-common travel areas. I haven't heard about this and wonder if people booking travel are being informed of the change. What about visitors coming to the TT? I predict chaos, says looking on the bright side, says 535. ETAs will be mandatory for visitors from non-common travel areas, and we get quite a lot of those in TT. I'm sure it's all been worked out. Mary, on the 3rd of December 2025, I had 1,820 litres of oil delivered for £1,213.49p. On Wednesday, the 8th of April, I had 1,800 litres delivered, £2,022.30p. £808.81 more expensive for 20 litres. Less. As a pensioner with only the state pension, how am I supposed to afford this? Thank you, Mary. All I can tell you is that a lot of the companies are offering smaller fill-ups now in the hope that the price is going to go down if everything gets sorted out and the worldwide price comes down. So a lot of the suppliers, whereas before you had to have a certain amount, I think they're going down as little as 200 litres nowadays. So if you're near the bottom of your oil tank, it's worth contacting the providers and seeing what the smallest delivery that they can get to you is, bearing in mind now we're coming into the warm months of the year. Talking about government buildings, Texter 382 says, tenders should be pinned down to an actual repair cost, not a figure based on guesswork. We need better quantity surveyors. For instance, the temporary traffic lights and signals for the DOI are extremely expensive, but there appears to be only one contractor, says 382. Peter says there's difficulty in attracting people to come and work on the Isle of Man. Nobody with any sense will want to come here and pay into a pension fund that government are advertising will run out in 20 years. Well, obviously there's got to be some sort of strategy, because if it runs out in 2047, then we're all in trouble. So presumably there's a plan in between now and then. The American-style chime whistle was fitted to one of the locomotives on the steam railway for a while last year, says Barry. Is that so? Well, if anybody knows where it is or has a recording of it, that will be terrific. The railway anorex will now be rushing for their cassette players. David's with us now. Hi, David.
Hi, Andy. Just talking the other day about solar panels and stuff like that and providing electricity.
Yep.
And then a couple of colleagues came on. The trouble is, well, I'll have to go back and listen again, because one fella came on and said, why doesn't David use the battery so much? Is because I turn everything off.
Right. Well, the thing is, it has to be said now, of course, light bulbs use a fraction of the... I mean, they're now 5 watts, whereas you could easily use a 75, 80, 100-watt bulb before. So lights take a lot less than they used to.
Yeah, and my solar lights in the garden... And actually, I got up at 5 o'clock one morning because of something happened, and all the lights were still left on in the garden. It was like daylight outside, and so they do work. So what I was going to ask Andy is, we need to get, because the fellow was on, I believe, talking about there are restrictions about they can only take so much supply off you.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware of that, and we need to get things together to make have the chairman on from the Max Utilities, Mr. Wanningberg, and grill him a little bit to say what's their policy regarding people putting panels in, and how can they restrict other people if they want to put them in, saying you can't because you're not in a certain area.
Well, the thing is, they can't have it both ways. They can't have the cake and eat it. If they want people to be more green and to have solar panels, but then restrict the amount that people can sell back to Max Utilities, then surely that's counterproductive.
Yeah, and I believe that the panels at the NSC, when they're put on, are all there's going to be back into the network.
Yeah.
So they're going to be charging 20. Well, they're going to push it out of 29p, but it's done tomorrow. Do you know what I mean, Andy? And the rest of us are only getting 9p. And I think that's a case of maybe, are we too late for this year? We might not be. Maybe a petition to Tynwald Hill and saying we're being unjustly treated, if you see what I mean.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't stack up. Well, it doesn't stack up from our point of view, because we're paying 29p and we're selling at 9p. So and it's the same stuff.
So they're making a profit all the time. That's the issue, and we need to make sure some of these politicians, and it's good that a few of them are now coming out of the woodwork and need to be travelling around and knocking on people's doors and saying to them is, because all the politicians now are just bringing up highlights. Mr. Hooper, I'm sorry about him, but he's just picking up issues, and hopefully it'll run for a while, which to me is not right in this day and age when we want things done, don't we? We want to make sure we got enough visitors here. We got to make sure there's plenty of industry here. We've sorted the thing out about the apprentices, so the employers are getting money. That was a stupid idea for not paying a company because they had more than 10 men. That was absolutely stupid doing that, because now we've got the future's going to be, and it's not going to be bank managers and computer people, is it? It's going to be plumbers, electricians, plasterers.
Well, put it this way, I'm trying to think. There was a famous actor years and years ago who said the measure of a civilization is the state of its plumbing, and if you don't have the plumbing right, nothing is civilized.
Yeah, and the minor one I've got you on to is about the DOI now, because their TT's coming up. All the work's getting done on the TT course, But I could say to you, on Peel Road, by the well-known places like the food emporiums there, opposite going into the bridge at Pulrose there, the markings actually, I'd love them to actually have a look at it. So some of the markings, because people are wandering from when they're coming from Quarterbridge to turn into Peel Pulrose Estate, and going into the National Sports Centre and stuff like that, are crossing the line too early.
Right.
So you've nearly got head-on traffic there. I've reported it, and I know other people have reported it as well. But we believe we've only got one set of painters on the island.
No.
Maybe it might be worth investigating that. But I wonder what the priorities are, because I was told the priorities are going to be the TT course, which is fair enough. But what about the rest of the year? Or the other excuse they use, it's not ideal weather to paint lines in the road. All right?
All right. Have a good weekend.
See you, boy. Ta-ra.
Cheers. Now, can anybody tell us then? This presumably these are the road grids around the EVF petrol station on Peel Road there. Are people crossing them? If you're turning right to go across Pulrose Bridge, that way, are people not adhering to that? Betty's with us now. Hi, Betty.
Hi. I've just got a little point to make.
Yeah.
I have been told that in the next few months in England, people will be able to buy and have plug-in solar panels. They're going to make a law to allow this, and it'll be so much cheaper because they can just prop them up against fences even, or they don't have to have people come in and put them on their roofs.
Right. So how will you run the electricity off these panels, I wonder?
Well, from your electricity in the house, I suppose. I don't know really, but this is what I've been told, that they're expecting a law to be passed allowing these, and it's going to be so much cheaper.
Have you got solar panels, Betty?
No, I haven't, because I was told years ago that we were too north-facing.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. We'll find out, Betty. Okay. Have a good weekend. Thanks for calling.
And you, thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, the National Insurance Fund could be empty within 20 years. This recent forecast keeps and shows a growing shortfall in contributions, meaning money will soon have to be withdrawn just to keep up with payments. Now, this is serious. The Director of National Insurance, David Ireland, says a closer look at the pension data tells a different story.
Treasury Minister Chris Thomas was flanked by Chief Financial Officer Coldrick Randall and David Ireland, Director of National Insurance. First, Chris Thomas was asked if Manx Care had the tools to control their spending.
I've asked that question, and I've tried to work with the Healthcare Minister and with all others involved to try and understand what's gone wrong in the past. And when I read things like, I fully agree with your sentiments around budgetary control and financial discipline, but I would also add that we must maintain confidence for now in the Board of Manx Care as an arm's length body of the department to be given the space to deliver on this. So therefore, what I'm suggesting is I think perhaps the tools were always there. Now there has to be the political will there, and I do think, from what I've said, that's what the post-budget people heard. I've really got it in for making sure that the board steps up to the mark, because we're serious. The public purse in the Isle of Man can't be used, the majority of it, to pay for the healthcare system. Once we get over 50%, we're in a ridiculous situation, and we're getting quite close.
Coldrick Randall now. Are the current levels of supplies and services by government sustainable?
I don't think it is sustainable without some review of service levels, and if those and that again is a judgment call. I guess is how do you fund those services? Do you say there's a user pays approach to delivery of some services? Do you look at some of the subsidisation elements that are happening there, or do you say it's a taxpayer delivered, therefore there needs to be more taxation drawn from the economy in one way or another?
Finally, David Ireland on that diminishing NI fund.
The latest report we have, obviously, is the 2022 Government Actuaries Report. And that forecasts that if we do nothing, basically the fund that underpins the operation of the scheme runs out in 2047-48. The government actually did some further modelling work for us, looking at some options, and when they did that, they actually took into account the significant increases there'd been in the state pension, and it's actually now moved the exhaustion date forward by 2 years. So we're now looking at an exhaustion date of 2045-46.
This is really serious, and presumably all politicians or would-be politicians are going to be focusing on this. And perhaps it's something you'll be asking those would-be politicians when they come knocking on your door asking for your vote. What's the plan for the National Insurance Fund? Could be empty in 20 years. How on earth are we going to get out of this? Somebody somewhere must have a bright idea. It's fair to say it's not going to be painless.
Hello, this is Doug Farragher. In conjunction with Manx Radio, I'd like to invite you to join us and learn something about our native Gaelic tongue, the language of man.
Visit Ramsey Art Gallery for a fabulous range of top brand watches and stunning gold and silver jewellery, gifts for all occasions, and of course our gallery of prints and original artworks. Find all this and more at Ramsey Art Gallery, Jewellers and Engravers, opposite the RNLI shop.
Ambitions Recruitment Consultants, covering all business sectors in the Isle of Man. Register online or email your CV to info@ambitions.co.im or ring 614 841. Ambitions, for all your recruitment needs, however big or small.
Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
The Parkinson's Disease Society Isle of Man is a local charity supporting island residents and their carers suffering from Parkinson's. Through care, advice and community events, they bring hope and connection. Volunteers and donations keep their vital work going. To find out how you can help, go to parkinsons.im and see how you can make a difference today.
This advert is brought to you by Kell Properties.
Love a proper country pub with superb food, great drinks, fantastic atmosphere and a warm welcome? Then you'll love the Ginger Hall in Sulby. From fabulous Sunday roasts and succulent steaks to pizza, chicken wraps and delicious desserts, there's something for everyone at the Ginger Hall in the pub or our restaurant. Our new menu is online and Facebook. Booking is highly recommended, so reserve your table at gingerhall.im. And why not stay over in one of our 8 en-suite hotel rooms? The Ginger Hall, country pub, restaurant and hotel.
As Gaelic Mera.
Avashanrish. A Gaelic, the Manx Gaelic, Ginian Mera, the mother tongue of Elian Vannin, the Isle of Man. Avashanrish. You can catch up with more of Manx Radio's Manx language programmes in the weekly podcast Abershenrish. Say that again. Abershenrish. Shene, that's the one.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster my good afternoon. I've just travelled through Laxey. Not me, but Texter 004. And from the Queen's Hotel to the petrol station, the place is looking dreadful. Have Laxey Commissioners no say in that row of derelict buildings? I know that. Have you noticed them down the bottom, almost opposite the Commissioners' offices? Those buildings look like a film set. Also, the old car showroom on the corner, the big shed, is looking very bad. I think that's going to become a care home. I think that's the plan anyway. And I saw, can the owners not be made to do these places up? A lot of tourists stop and walk around Laxey. It must look shocking to them. Hearing David talking about solar panels, I ask again how government expects people living in terraced homes, flats and other restricted properties to install adequate numbers of solar panels or heat pumps or EV charging points to go green, says Gaz. Well, let's take one at a time. Charging points aren't really possible, are they, in terraced houses? Heat pumps aren't really possible unless you've got a decent bit of land. Solar panels can really go anywhere that's got a roof, you would imagine. Anyway, I've been checking these plug-in things that Betty was talking about. Reports in the UK about these plug-in or balcony solar panels being made easier to use. As of now, there's no confirmed UK-wide government scheme offering these panels specifically as an affordability measure. Some regulatory changes are being discussed to allow simpler installation, but details and any financial support are still limited and not in place. So, not yet. On the Isle of Man, there's been no official announcement from the government, DEFRA, or Manx Utilities confirming plug-in solar panels, whether they'll be introduced or supported under any scheme. These are things you can kind of stick on the side of your house. And in fact, quite a few places have got solar panels on the side of their house. I was looking down from Kirkmichael down to the sea, down to the beach there, and there's a house there that's got quite a lot of them on the side of the house, on the perpendicular. At present, anyway, the island's support for renewable energy at household level comes mainly through existing grant schemes for installed solar PV systems, which require proper installation rather than plug-in units. So in short, the idea is being explored in the UK, and there's no confirmed scheme here and no indication that a similar approach will be on the Isle of Man. So the plug-in ones, we don't know yet. So many more messages to get to. Your previous contributor hit the nail on the head regarding government tendering. DOI and Manxcare rarely get tenders in for construction works. Is that so, Pat? Managers have their favourites. Well, that's Pat's opinion, and give most of the work to the same contractors. How are we getting value for money? Example, the same contractor has painted all the internal and external grandstand for the last 25 years. Question is the quality. Does it need to be done every year? So what's going to happen? And how does this actually... Isn't it anything above a certain level has to go to tender? I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong. I've got a relative in England with solar panels who's getting 24p back selling to the grid. Well, good for him, but what do we do here? The drain on the reserves, it's certainly not the OAP is causing this, it's the multiplicity of jobsworths employed by the government. Well, that's 713 with the considered view of where the money's going. I presume the forecast for the NI fund factors in the thousands of workers to be attracted by government to work here. A recent question found over 200 over 60s had come here to work. Who will no doubt impact funds in the next decade. Well, there is quite a lot of work to do. Paul Crane, who did the Manx Population Atlas, has told us there is a kind of demographic time bomb on the way, sort of generational time bomb on the way as more and more older people, and of course that's the great, it's a benefit, it's a pleasure, and it's a curse. It's a pleasure because everybody's living into their 80s now. Many people live way into their 90s. Didn't used to. Once upon a time, you had a heart attack, that was it. Good night, Vienna. Nowadays, with defibrillators everywhere, many, many more people. So that's great. The curse is the financial side, because the more people stay alive, the longer people stay alive, the more has to be paid out in pensions. The one factor that kind of goes under the radar is smoking. Once upon a time, when everybody smoked, if you could go back 30, 40 years, that's the one thing you'd notice. Everybody going into a pub or a restaurant or a cafe, people smoking. People used to start smoking in their teens and would smoke for 50 years. They'd be pouring millions of pounds into the tobacco duty fund. Now, virtually nobody smokes. Consequently, that money isn't there anymore. And people are now living longer because they didn't smoke. So you're getting both sides. People are living longer and taking more money out of the system and not paying in by smoking. How inconsiderate. Julian's with us. You've never smoked, have you, Julian?
No, I haven't. But yes, as you say, it's a bit like probably electric vehicles will end up having more and more taxes applied to them as if they get their way. Although I don't know the way it's going at the moment. I think the EV sales, I think people are realising all the restrictions on them. We'll see. You mentioned Betty mentioned an interesting point about north-facing roofs. Yeah. Not a lot of good for solar. So how many properties are there on the island that don't have suitable for solar? But the suitability is also about the fact that renewables, whether it be wind turbines or solar panels, are producing direct current, DC, flatline, but we're using an AC grid, which is trying to put a square peg in a round hole. So you need to spend a lot of money to integrate them, and it's very difficult because you have to have a very precise 50 times a second frequency. So it probably would cost the taxpayer somewhere around north of 30 million if you were to put as many buildings as you could onto solar and feed it into the Manx grid, because that's one of the reasons why there's a restriction, because every time a cloud goes over or whatever, this frequency is going to be all over the place.
Right.
And at night, you haven't got any.
Where do you get 30 million from?
This is just scaling up from how much it costs to put things like grid-forming inverters and synthetic inertia systems in. So, every house that would produce that would not be compatible with what's going along the overhead lines. So there's a huge amount of engineering would have to be involved to actually integrate loads of renewables in, which is why the UK are talking about huge telephone numbers amounts of money to get wind, 1,000 miles from Shetlands down to London, where the majority of the population is.
Right.
There's talks of £500 billion at least. Some people say $1 trillion to put all the new wiring and all the new synthetic inertia stuff in. And of course, the problem with the synthetic inertia is a lot of scientists are saying, unlike a power station with these huge rollers, the rotors that are going around that push the electricity forward, no matter if it's on the positive or the negative. When you have a digital thing like synthetic inertia, it's either on or it's off, like a switch, which means for every half second, there's nothing pushing the electricity. So this is, I think, what happened with this cascade problem in Spain. You had a fraction of a second and the whole thing fell over, and 50 million people and 150 million were out of power for over a day. And I think 100 people died. There was people at home on machines that were keeping them alive, and all this type of thing.
Presumably, the Manx government have know all this. Presumably, they've got people who'll be, futurologists who'll know that if you're going to get people, if you're going to be pumping domestic solar electricity into the system, that there must be a plan for all this. Surely, Julian.
You'd hope so. I mean, I seem to remember I can't remember if it was Andrew or Mark made a point. He mentioned that in Ballasalla, for example, just talking about grid and what it can support, isn't there a limitation on on that housing estate as to how many people can have electric car chargers? Because the system just can't handle the amount of power that's required, to do that kind of thing. So there's a kind of a hint that there's going to have to be massive amounts of money, not just to integrate solar to put in, but if you start having loads of people having electric vehicles and heat pumps, there's going to have to be a major update to how you ship all that electricity around the island.
Yeah, I also heard that there's an upmarket block of flats. I won't name them, but an upmarket block of flats in Douglas, real upmarket. 6 figures to get. Upper end of 6 figures to get a flat there, and they're not letting people charge EVs there, because if everybody plugged in at once, they'd blow the circuit. And this is for a very upmarket block of flats. Now, there are lots of blocks of flats certainly around Douglas, and presumably, I'd like to know whether all those blocks of flats could stand people plugging in at once.
And the trouble is, it tends to be underground, and I think there's a boutique hotel chain, I think in Greece, and they're also in Germany, and they've banned EVs from using their underground car parking. And part of that, I think, is the fact that if you get the thermal runaway and then you've got the smoke and all the rest of it, you can have big issues if it's underneath you and you're trying to get out of the building.
All right. Good to hear from you. Thanks, Julian. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Andy. You too. Cheers.
16 minutes before 1. Actually, Peter sent me a photo of an EV on one of the Mezeram boats in Ramsey, and I'm gathering that's the only way to get an EV off the Isle of Man. If it's faulty, if it needs repairing, they go on the deck on the Mezeram boats. And also, Peter sent me he sent me a photo, actually, of what the post office at Andreas used to do. It used to do special delivery. There was a sign outside, and if you remember your local post office, it would say things like the special delivery, foreign exchange, banking services, redirect, keep safe, stamps and coins, vehicle and driving licenses, benefit payments, fishing and dog licenses, postal orders, utility bill payments, TV licenses, phone cards and mobile top-ups, savings stamps, fixed penalties, Explorer bus tickets, Friends of Manx National Heritage and government rent collection. Now the post office at Andreas does parcels and stamps. A steady erosion of a service to the community and a push to a digital society with no thought to those who don't want to go in that direction, and no notable cost savings anywhere. Don't know what's going to happen if there's ever a power failure. And yes, the cars on the Meteran boats probably damaged in accidents. Obviously, there's nowhere on the Isle of Man geared up to repair EVs. I would like to know if there is a place where EVs can be repaired on the Isle of Man. Yes, the diminution of service to post offices. It would seem that it's only one way, that the trajectory is to reduce services at post offices. But then again, be honest, when was the last time you went into a post office? Now, lots of people do, but post offices simply aren't as busy as they used to be. Or am I missing something?
This is the Isle of Man talking. The Mannin Line.
Feeding friends and family with the finest the island has to offer. The Forge Smokehouse and Grill Santon. Fresh Manx produce marinated, slowly cooked, grilled and smoked to perfection right here and served in a gorgeous setting. Just walk in anytime, no booking needed. Parties, family gatherings and weddings, the perfect venue for any occasion. And don't forget our large marquee for any event. Visit theforge.im and see.
Jeffrey, I do love the view from our new sliding patio doors from Spectrum Windows, with trees, fields and Snaefell in the distance.
Yes, and I've got a smashing view of Madeline. What a beauty.
Jeffrey!
Don't worry, Madeline's my new prize pig. Look, she's as happy as a pig in muck.
Oh, Jeffrey, she is a pig in muck.
Improve your outlook with sliding patio doors. Visit Spectrum Windows, the showroom, Derby Road, Ramsey, or call 817777.
Join Kell Developments on Saturday and Sunday at their exclusive Oatlands Road Andreas show home opening. Discover high-spec modern new builds, quality finishes, energy-efficient features and speak with the developers. Show home open 10 to 2 every Saturday and Sunday or by appointment.
Road racing returns to the island, and Manx Radio Motorsport is an essential part of it. As the official TT Broadcast Media partner, our live coverage brings every qualifying and race session to the island and the world on air and online. So with airtime, sponsorship and digital advertising options, it's officially your best chance to reach a global motorsports audience. Contact our sales team now on 682 620 or at sales@manxradio.com. Manx Radio Motorsport, the best biking station in the world.
Are you a small charity here on the Isle of Man? Are you looking for volunteers, hoping to raise awareness and chasing those crucial pounds and pennies to support your work? Well, Manx Radio can help. You could be our next 1 to 3 Charity of the Week. With daily on-air coverage, podcast and social media promotion, we can help support you and those you help. Just email the numbers 123@manxradio.com and listen out for the feature each weekday between 1 and 3 p.m. The Charity of the Week, brought to you by Kell Properties.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
12 minutes before 1. The news about EVs on the Isle of Man. Electric vehicles can be repaired, apparently, on the Isle of Man, but options are more limited than for petrol or diesel cars and tend to be concentrated amongst the main dealers and specialist garages with high voltage training. Apparently, authorised dealerships can handle BMW and Mini, including electrical models, and also the Hyundai EVs can be, but if you work at one of these garages, can you just get in and tell me? Can you mend? How much of an EV can you mend? Because I mean, all it is the battery and an electric motor. A very simple thing, an electric motor. So what can be done? Or and the other bits for things like the suspension and what have you, and the brakes, can they be done by anybody? Carla's with us. Hi, Carla. You called yesterday, didn't you?
Yes, I did, and I've had a few people contact me and ask me to voice their same concerns on the matter.
This was about home births, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. So one thing which I know already, but many residents on the island may not know, is the hospital has got a duty of care to women, children and families to provide the home birth service. We've got local legislation which states that, the NHS Act states that, and it's actually a fundamental human right. So they've been breaching all of these for a number of years, and as far as I can tell, there's no consequence to them whatsoever. And I've actually been sent the census of birth rates on the Isle of Man from about 90 years ago, and they're actually less births now than there were 90 years ago. So I just quote what's been sent to me. Yeah. The Isle of Man had around 13 births per 1,000 people in the mid-1930s. By comparison, recent data shows a much lower birth rate today, around 8 per 1,000. In 2024, the island recorded just 574 births, which was the lowest since 1918. So what I want to know basically is, how is it possible that 100 years ago, more or less, when there was no legislation in place, this service was provided by our community? Whereas now we've got all this legislation in place and human rights and the NHS Act, and the service isn't being provided, and the hospital and our public servants aren't being held accountable. In fact, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get out of their responsibility, because 2 years ago somebody else complained about this, actually 3 years ago, and the DHSC's response was that they're looking to revise the legislation so that the law on planned births states that they may be offered rather than shall be, which would remove the possibility of any legal breach. So,
okay, well, Carla, you know about all this stuff. So, obviously, I'm a man. I've never had a child. So, tell me, why would people choose to have a home birth?
Why? Because basically, if you're in an environment where you feel safe, you're going to birth better. Basically, if you're somewhere where you're scared, you're not going to birth naturally. So, for example, a cat or a dog, when they're going to birth, they go into a corner in a dark place where they're not disturbed. Now, hospital settings, you're meeting strangers and you're in a very vulnerable position, because guess what? You're naked. You're showing them your private, intimate parts, aren't you? So you're not going to feel comfortable around strangers doing that. Whereas if you're in your house, you know the environment, you know the smells. There's no bright lights.
Right, okay. What happens if there's a problem, though, in a home birth? What happens if there's a medical emergency?
The thing is, the data shows that you're more likely to birth safely at home than in a hospital setting. And if you have a midwife on hand, guess what? They recognise what the risks are. So that's why it's so vital to have that expertise support there for you. So you're not second guessing, oh, is this normal, is that normal, not normal, should I be concerned, do I need to transfer? You know, this was very normal and is still very normal in so many parts of the world. It's the only western side part of the world where we go to hospitals. You know, when you get up and move in the middle of labour, it stops labour, it interferes with labour.
Why do you think it's not being offered here?
I don't know. I think, you know, with the lockdowns, they had less and less services, and they've just not brought it back.
Right.
They're hiding behind the fact that, oh, we don't know how many people would take it up. Well, ask people up front, is this something you'd be interested in? These are the pros, these are the cons. You know, if you don't ask, you don't know, but you can't just remove a service which you're legally obliged to do and just hide behind, like, staffing. You know, do something about it. They've had, as far as I can tell, they've removed this service for almost 10 years.
Okay.
So that's not good enough. They're not doing enough to fix it. But they'll do stuff, you know, which is not necessary.
Okay. All right. Carla, we appreciate it. Thanks for calling back today, and thanks for your contribution yesterday. Anne's on now. You know about this, don't you, Anne?
Oh, yes, I do. I had my second son at home. I've actually stood right in the spot where he came through the
birth canal, shall we say?
Birth canal, yes, he came through the birth canal. Amazing. And he's 31, he's in Australia surfing the fourth dimension, like he's never been born, compared to my older son, who was born in a clinical environment, and their personalities are so different. My second son, he's just resonating harmony with the universe and beauty and love.
So tell me, did it just happen, or was it a planned home birth?
Oh, planned home birth, because of the way I was treated with my first son in the Jane. Absolutely horrific. So I vowed I would never go back into that environment to have a child. It was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. That's all I can explain.
Right.
And which is not a good environment for a brand new child to be born into. Sarcasm, everything, because I wanted a natural birth and they were trying to get me in stirrups. So my husband had to actually pick me up by the scruff of the neck so I could get into a squat position, even though it had all been planned for the 9 months before. Absolutely horrific.
What's your son's name?
Well, my second son is called Dagan.
Right. And he's in Australia surfing.
Oh, yeah, having the most amazing time. And I do believe it makes a whole difference to your whole life, your birth, your experience of birth.
Good to hear from you.
And, yeah. Okay, thank you.
We appreciate it, and thanks for calling today. I'll let you into a little secret here. I don't often tell you much about my life. I was born at home. Many years ago, I was born at home. The midwife and a GP delivered me years and years ago. Now, whether or not that's contributed to my radiating positive personality, I'll let you be the judge. We were talking about fostering and adoption yesterday with Manx Care, and I was talking about the lady who'd fostered over 100 children. We actually did a feature 20 plus years ago out on Douglas Head. We released, tell you how long it was ago, we released 88 balloons. You wouldn't be allowed to do that. 88 balloons because there were 88 children that needed fostering. And it was at that point that I met Moira Callow. Moira Callow, MBE, fostered over 100 children. And the person who told me, her son, Jim Callow, who sent me the photos of her meeting Queen Elizabeth II to get her MBE. Moira Callow fostered over 100 children. And if it's something that you're interested in, then I'm sure they'd like to hear from you. It is National Fostering Month on the way. Thank you, Chrissy, who tells me over 60s who come to the Isle of Man won't qualify for a penny in Manx pensions unless they work and contribute for at least 10 years. Gail said the caller talking about Laxey is correct. It's not just Laxey. Peel is bad with unkempt and dirty buildings around the place. A drop of paint and removal of weeds would work wonders. Well, certainly weeds at this time of the year, but Laxey could be gorgeous, couldn't it? But my word, those derelict properties down towards the co-op, there's something else. Anyway, that's it. Remember, next Wednesday, Rob Callister, MHK, is on the planning committee chair. Have a great weekend. And thanks to Chris on the phones today.
WINT